The movie begins with a scene of an army led by a female general chasing down two demons. Although the demons put up some resistance, they are eventually cornered and forced to leap off a cliff. The general, noticing a town ahead, worries that the demons might head there, so she leads her troops to investigate. Meanwhile, in that very town, we meet Heron, a poor miner. After a long day of labor, he manages to fill a bag with ore and takes it to sell. However, the buyer only offers him 2 coins. Though deeply disappointed, Heron accepts the meager payment, reasoning that something is better than nothing, and heads home to his mother. On the way back, he hears a noise by the roadside. Grabbing a torch, he investigates and encounters the female general, Alexia, who is also an investigator. She asks if he has seen any demons passing through, but Heron hasn't. Alexia and her troops move on, continuing their pursuit. Heron then finds his uncle, Elas, with an injured leg and takes him home to his mother for treatment. While fetching water to clean the wound, Heron spots a young woman nearby. However, upon approaching, he discovers that she has been gruesomely sliced in half. A demon suddenly appears, forcing Heron to confront it. The demon hurls an entire stone pillar at him, but Alexia arrives just in time to save him. The demon manages to free itself from Alexia's holy spear, prompting her to draw her twin swords. Although the demon's skin was extremely tough, it was not entirely invincible. Alexia still managed to wound him. However, he grabbed one of her swords and hurled her to the side. He then threw the sword back at her, but Heron rushed forward and pressed a burning torch against the demon's face. In just a second, the demon vanished. Determined to eliminate the threat, Alexia orders her troops to comb the area. They eventually capture a cloaked figure. In front of the townspeople, Alexia reveals that the cloaked figure is a demon. She presses a heated iron against him, causing his demonic form to emerge. Alexia explains that these creatures belong to a cult that defies the teachings of the gods and seeks power through demonic means. She executes the demon, but the other one remains at large. Back at home, Heron ponders how a person could transform into a demon. His uncle Elas recounts the ancient battle between Zeus and the Titans. When the final Titan fell, it cursed the world. Its blood seeped into the ocean, birthing colossal monsters and reigniting the gods' war. Many gods perished, but Zeus struck a deal with 2 of the creatures, convincing them to betray their kin. With their help, the gods managed to seal the monsters away. Their souls were locked in a cauldron by Hermes, while their bodies were cast into the sea. The cauldron was guarded by a divine mechanism created by Hephaestus to prevent the monsters from ever escaping. However, over time, one of the Titans' corpses washed ashore and was discovered by a human. The darkness within the corpse corrupted the man's mind, transforming him into a demon. More people were drawn to the corpse, consumed by its evil, and became demons themselves. The gods, unwilling to intervene, wanted humanity to grow strong and face these demons without relying on divine aid. That evening, Elas gifts Heron and his mother a rabbit he had hunted for their dinner. The next morning, the demon's corpse is burned. Alexia approaches Heron and invites him to join her army to fight against the demons. However, Heron declines, citing his responsibility to care for his mother, as the townsfolk had abandoned them. He feels no obligation to protect people who left him and his mother to fend for themselves. Heron begins packing, planning to leave the village with his mother. But the villagers, suspecting Heron's mother of being a witch, gather outside their home. They claim the constant dark clouds since her arrival are proof of her witchcraft. The mob demands to brand her with a heated iron to confirm if she is a demon. Heron, prepared to fight anyone, fiercely defends his mother. The villagers hesitate until the village chief orders them to attack one by one. Alexia happens upon the scene and observes Heron's bravery. Meanwhile, Heron's mother, desperate to protect her son, grabs the heated iron herself and presses it against her hand, proving she is not a demon. Later, Heron reflects on the events and decides to follow Alexia. Elas advises him to climb the mountain nearby, where a rose bush grows. Beneath it, he will find enough ore to forge a powerful sword. Heron later embarks on the journey as instructed. At this point, we know that Elas is actually Zeus in disguise. Ares confronts Zeus, questioning why he is interfering in the mortal realm. Zeus defends himself, stating that the laws he established prohibit gods from directly participating in battles, but offering guidance is not against the rules. However, Zeus explains that his involvement is limited to helping Heron because he believes Heron is destined to lead humanity. Years ago, Heron's mother was the wife of a certain king. During childbirth, she instructed the midwife to keep a particular matter secret. When the first child was born, the king examined him, saw that the baby had his eyes, and was delighted that this was his son. But suddenly, a second child was born, this one with blue eyes. The king immediately suspected infidelity and attempted to kill the baby on the spot. However, an eagle swooped down and rescued the child, who grew up to be Heron. Awakening from his reflections, Heron continues his climb and eventually reaches the mountaintop, finding the rose bush Elas had mentioned. He collects the ore and returns, only to become frustrated as the ore seems unusable for forging. However, Elas has his own methods for smelting it. Heron shares a vision he saw in a dream, which Elas explains pertains to creatures created by the god of dreams. These creatures remind humans of things they have forgotten. Heron then seeks out his mother and asks her about the dream, particularly about her time as a queen. She confesses that she was once forced to marry a tyrannical king. Shortly after their marriage, she caught the eye of a certain god. And of course, when it comes to philandering gods, it's clear who it is. Initially, Zeus disguised himself as the king, leaving her unaware of his true identity. Each day, she noticed two contrasting sides of her husband, one gentle and loving, the other indifferent and callous. She assumed it was a dual personality and only loved the kind persona. Zeus, the gentle personality, gifted her a necklace, which she still wears. Over time, she started to piece things together and confronted him, asking who the gentle side really was. Zeus eventually revealed himself. Around this time, Hera, Zeus's wife, grew suspicious of his time in the mortal realm. Apollo warned Zeus to return immediately. Zeus left the mortal world, lying to Hera that he had been visiting Poseidon. Meanwhile, Apollo stayed behind and deduced that Zeus must truly care for Heron's mother since he had never revealed his identity to a mortal before. Apollo also noticed she was pregnant with Zeus's child. Before long, Hera discovered Zeus's infidelity and sought out the god of dreams, asking him to plant a prophetic nightmare in the king's mind. In the dream, the king was warned that the queen would give birth to two children, one of whom would not be his. Fast forward to the day of Heron's birth, Zeus rushed to protect him. The king, in a fit of rage, tried to kill the baby, but Heron's mother stabbed the king in the eye and pushed him off the balcony to his death. Zeus then took Heron and his mother away, summoning clouds to obscure Hera's view and shield them from her wrath. However, Heron's twin brother was left behind at the castle. Believing he would be safe there, Heron's mother later learned that the boy was killed by his uncle, who seized the throne. Heron, feeling abandoned, berates Zeus for leaving him and his mother to fend for themselves. However, he soon realizes that Elas, the man who had been helping them all along, is Zeus himself. Heron goes to Elas's forge, destroys it in frustration, and discovers a sword that Zeus left for him. But Heron refuses to accept the sword, throwing it away in anger. Elsewhere, Alexia examines a map she had taken from the demon. She discovers that when water is applied to the map, a hidden layer reveals itself. But at that moment, demons surround her forces. Among them is a figure who seems to be the leader of the demons and is heading directly toward Alexia. Meanwhile, Zeus meets Heron's mother again. She begs him to take her and Heron away from this place, but Zeus admits he cannot. Feeling betrayed, she accuses Zeus of being a coward, fearing Hera more than he loves them. Realizing Hera's ravens have been watching, Zeus understands that his presence has been discovered. Meanwhile, Alexia's troops were completely slaughtered by the demons, But the commander of the horde realized Alexia had escaped with the map. He ordered his minions to track her down. The demons unleashed their hounds to pursue her. Elsewhere, Zeus personally approached Heron, begging him for forgiveness. However, no son could forgive a father who had abandoned his mother and him to suffer, while standing idly by. Zeus left after being rejected. Shortly after, Alexia appeared, followed by the three-headed hound Cerberus. At the same time, Ares was sparring with Apollo and Hermes. Despite taking on both at once, Ares was effortlessly holding his ground. Suddenly, Zeus arrived, unleashing a bolt of lightning to interrupt the fight. He accused Ares of revealing his affair to Hera. However, Hera intervened, stating she had always known and didn't need anyone to expose Zeus's infidelities. Hera chastised Zeus, claiming he never truly loved her and only enjoyed chasing mortals. His constant escapades on Earth had made him a laughingstock among the gods. She reminded him how she used to defend him, telling the other gods to remember his former heroism. But now, Zeus had become nothing more than a joke. Even as viewers, we couldn't help but see Zeus as comical. Hera's frustration was completely justified. Since when had Zeus become so afraid of his wife? In an attempt to assert himself, Zeus warned Hera not to harm Heron and his mother. But it was unlikely Hera would listen. She turned away, and upon seeing Hermes arrive, she mockingly remarked that yet another of Zeus's illegitimate children had appeared. Hearing news that Heron was under attack, Zeus ordered dark clouds to obscure his view so he could monitor from above, refraining from intervening directly. Heron and Alexia had returned to Heron's home, but his mother was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Cerberus had caught up with them. Alexia tried to hold off the beast while Heron fired arrows from a distance. Cerberus proved incredibly resilient, charging forward and knocking Heron aside. Alexia distracted the creature long enough for Heron to drive a wooden stake into one of its heads. However, 2 heads remained, and the horde of demons began swarming the mountain. Hermes, now manipulating the clouds, cleared them to brighten the sky. Heron's mother and the townsfolk, sensing danger, started to flee. Meanwhile, the demons began descending the mountain. Alexia mentioned a mining tunnel that could serve as an escape route, so Heron set about preparing for an evacuation. He triggered a rockfall he had prepared earlier, crushing part of the demon horde. Cerberus, undeterred, tore off its injured head. Heron and Alexia made their way back to the city. Alexia instructed her soldiers to begin evacuating the townspeople, but Heron was determined to find his mother first. While searching, Heron was ambushed by the demon commander, who hurled a spear at him. This spear could return to its wielder, catching Heron off guard with a second attack. Zeus, observing the battle, guided Heron to dodge the attacks and advised him to flee instead of fighting. Heron fled, eventually tripping over an oil barrel. Thinking quickly, he spilled the oil and set it ablaze to kill off some demons. Meanwhile, the village elder decided to sever the escape route by cutting the ropes to the gate. However, Heron managed to leap through in time, scaring the elder away. Heron's mother, climbing toward the mine, found herself blocked by the demon commander and Cerberus. Faced with demons ahead and the 2-headed hound behind, she and an elderly woman took shelter in a nearby barn. The demon commander, introducing himself as Raphim, demanded to know who ruled the village. When the elder stepped forward, Raphim recognized his surname as part of a royal noble family. Raphim revealed his hatred for nobles, pointing to a scar on his face caused by them. He demanded to know Alexia's whereabouts. One of his minions and Cerberus caught her scent, making Raphim lose interest in the elder and killing him on the spot. As Raphim and his forces tracked Alexia, she tried to hide, but was discovered by the demons. Zeus intervened, creating a dense thicket to mask her scent from the hounds. Seeing this, Hera decided to intervene. She sent a gust of wind that carried Alexia's scented scarf directly to the barn where Heron's mother was hiding. Zeus, realizing the danger, wanted to rescue his mortal lover. But Hera summoned Poseidon to prevent Zeus from interfering with mortal affairs. Heron's mother now stood face to face with death. Zeus, aware that his own rules constrained him, realized that stepping in to save his lover would pit him against all the gods allied with Hera. Rapham confronted Heron's mother, demanding Alexia's location. She genuinely didn't know, but the elderly woman beside her tried to cover for her. Rapham immediately speared the woman to death. Heron arrived just in time, rushing in to save his mother, but his mortal strength was no match for Rapham. The demon noticed the hatred burning in Heron's eyes and remarked that hatred gives humans strength. Rapham offered Heron a choice: join him or die. However, deciding that killing Heron outright was too easy, Rapham instead chose to murder Heron's mother right before his eyes. Zeus realized what was happening too late. Poseidon, though sympathetic and wishing to help his brother, reminded him that rules were rules. Hera, on the other hand, appeared smugly satisfied. After killing Heron's mother, Rapham took the necklace that Zeus had once gifted her and left with it. The next morning, Alexia emerged from her hiding place and was confronted with a devastation. She found Zeus mourning over Heron's mother. He informed Alexia that the person she was seeking had been captured, and it was now up to her to rescue them. Zeus placed 2 coins over the deceased woman's eyes as a parting gesture. Hermes arrived, taking the soul of Heron's mother, so she could see Zeus one last time before being escorted to the underworld. Hermes summoned Charon, the ferryman of the underworld. The spirits of the unburied, unable to cross the river, began to appear. Charon drove them away and asked Hermes whom he was ferrying. Hermes handed over the coins and instructed Charon to ensure Heron's mother was treated with the utmost respect, lest the wrath of the god of thunder befall him. Charon escorted Heron's mother and allowed her to see someone before crossing. She chose to speak with Heron. Offering her final words of advice, she faded away. Heron reached out for her, only to narrowly avoid being bitten by the 2-headed Cerberus. Heron questioned those who had been captured about Rapham's whereabouts. They revealed he was still chasing Alexia. Meanwhile, Alexia, pursued by Rapham, leaped into a stream to evade him. She hid in a cave behind a waterfall, but was eventually cornered. To Rapham's shock, Alexia transformed into Hera. Hera revealed Rapham's past through visions. To his disbelief, Rapham learned he was the twin brother of Heron, the son of the king from long ago. On the day of their birth, their uncle had cast Rapham into the sea. A servant, moved by pity, rescued and raised him. However, during their escape, the servant hid with Rapham in a cave, only to encounter a bear. The servant prayed to Hera, who tamed the bear. Rapham survived by drinking the bear's milk and lived among the bears and his foster mother for years. One day, the cruel children of his uncle discovered Rapham's existence and began hunting them. They slaughtered the family of Rapham's foster mother's sister to gather information. When the hunters came for Rapham's foster mother, he fought back, killing one of the noble children. This prompted a chase. The bears joined the battle, but just as Rapham believed he could save his foster mother, one of the nobles killed her and gouged out Rapham's eye. 2 bear cubs were slain as well, but the mother bear charged in and killed the remaining attackers. The noble responsible for the atrocities managed to escape. Rapham left the forest, swearing vengeance. He taught himself to kill to survive and eventually tracked down the noble. Finding him reveling with a woman, Rapham stabbed him from behind and used the very dagger the noble had once wielded to take everything from him. Rapham drove the dagger into the noble's left eye before fleeing. He was pursued relentlessly and eventually fell from a cliff, swept away by the waves into a cave where he discovered the corpse of a titan. Tempted by whispers, he consumed the titan's flesh, transforming into a demon. Rapham used the spear he had taken from the titan's corpse to slaughter 12 soldiers pursuing him. When only 3 remained, they surrendered and were accepted as his subordinates. Hera believed that he should have been a king, but Zeus's interference in the mortal realm had left him in this dire state. She revealed everything to him, including the harrowing truth of how he had unknowingly killed his own mother. In the end, Hera's goal was for Rapham to rise up and challenge Zeus, the one responsible for his plight. At the same time, the group accompanying Heron had been captured and was being escorted onto a ship to be enslaved. Meanwhile, Alexia had arrived at the village of the centaurs, seeking Chiron, a wise centaur who could help her decipher a mysterious map. Upon meeting Chiron, Alexia presented the map, and he explained that it could be interpreted using a star chart. That night, Chiron used the map and aligned it with the stars, successfully decoding it. However, a group of demons, anticipating her arrival, had already positioned themselves to ambush her. Chiron, unwilling to risk the safety of his people, betrayed Alexia. When Alexia resisted, Chiron deliberately spilled a bowl of mud onto the map, then trampled it before handing it over to Raphim. Chiron wanted to keep Alexia there, but he was threatened with the lives of his people, so he reluctantly handed her over to the demon. Meanwhile, Heron and his two companions sitting nearby were devising an escape plan. Raphim, after capturing Alexia, killed a weak subordinate who had previously lost an arm in a fight with Alexia. Raphim then went to see Hera. She instructed him to destroy the sword Zeus had crafted for Heron and to kill Heron on her behalf. Raphim departed and visited Heron's former home, where he searched through the place to learn more about Heron's biological mother. While exploring, he began searching for the sword and soon found the blade Hera had mentioned, a sword capable of cutting through nearly anything. Impressed by its immense power, Raphim decided to keep it for himself. As for Heron, he noticed that the demons escorting them were preparing to stop and refuel, so he decided it was time to act. Before making his move, Heron asked his two companions their names. The man in blue introduced himself as Evie, and the other was Kofi. When the time came, the three pretended to need to use the restroom. Evie and Kofi argued and caused a commotion, prompting a demon guard to angrily send them back to their spots. However, this distraction allowed Evie to steal the keys from the demon guard. Evie handed the keys to Kofi, who began unlocking his restraints, while Heron kept the guard distracted to prevent him from noticing. The three managed to free themselves and started fighting back against the demon guards. As soon as the other two demons realized what was happening, Heron confronted them immediately. One demon tried to ring the alarm bell, but Evie threw his chains to stop him, and Kofi helped drag the demon back. With their momentum building, the prisoners rallied together, took over the ship, and planned to sail it back to the mainland. On shore, Alexia was about to be brought onto a ship when she noticed another ship suddenly veer off course and crash into the one she was being loaded onto. At this moment, Hermes reported to Zeus that he had seen Hera and Raphim plotting together. It seemed Hera intended to aid the demons. Zeus, upon seeing Raphim carrying the sword to hunt down Heron, became enraged and unleashed a relentless barrage of lightning. The lightning strikes severely damaged the ships, causing explosions and chaos on the water. Taking advantage of the chaos, Alexia managed to escape. Zeus's continuous display of anger and lightning strikes did not go unnoticed by the other gods, and it seemed likely that Zeus would soon face challenges from Olympus itself. Later, Raphim reached the shore, while Heron reunited with Alexia. Zeus descended to inform them that the gods were now involved. At that moment, Raphim attacked Hera's crow, but was blown away by her power. He accused Hera of deceiving him by sending him to kill someone under Zeus's protection. Hera dismissed his complaints, stating that Zeus's interference did not affect her plan. However, Raphim declared that he refused to be her pawn any longer. Hera promised to grant him the position of the uncle he despised the most, but said he needed to find her the Cauldron of Shadows first. Since he could move freely, unlike her, this was his task. Meanwhile, Heron told Zeus he did not need his help, but Zeus insisted on aiding Heron at all costs. Zeus then instructed Alexia and Evie to guide their people through the labyrinth to find the body of the Titan and burn it, as this was the only way to weaken the demons. He reassured Alexia that the map would soon return to her, so she should not worry too much. Zeus then summoned a griffin for Heron to ride and flew off. Heron mounted the griffin and followed Zeus, who led him to Olympus, stunning everyone present. Hera soon arrived. furious that Zeus had brought Heren to Olympus. Zeus declared that he was determined to atone for the mistakes he had caused, as everything happening below was his fault. He swore never to betray Hera again, but Hera said she would only forgive him if he brought her Heren's head. Zeus refused, and the gods divided into two factions, one supporting Hera and a smaller group siding with Zeus. Zeus warned Poseidon against siding with Hera, but Poseidon dismissed him, calling Zeus foolish for opposing her. Zeus then brought Heren to a training arena, determined to help him awaken his demigod powers. Heren was tasked with fighting one of Hephaestus's mechanical creations. Lacking combat experience, Heren fought using sheer rage and raw strength alone. Zeus had to tell Heren to calm down and fight wisely, but Heren didn't improve at all, which frustrated Zeus. He couldn't find the right words to teach Heren properly, causing Heren to get upset and walk off. The blacksmith god suggested that Zeus should act more like a father instead of being so bitter, because this would only make Heren angrier. Meanwhile, Alexia's group still had a few more days to travel before reaching their destination. Evie began complaining about not seeing the end in sight. He and Kofi had also noticed some things about Zeus's words, which seemed to hint at a past decision they made that was wrong. Heren, meanwhile, met with Zeus again. Zeus shared that he was trying to be a father, but didn't know how because he'd never been taught by his own father. He knew almost everything about the world, but had never been trained to be a father. He asked Heren to give him a chance and promised to train him again the next day. However, the next day, Heren made no progress at all, which led Zeus to stop the training and advise Heren to let go of his anger. But Heren couldn't do that, as his anger stemmed from Zeus letting his mother die. Zeus couldn't do anything about it, and he also couldn't deal with Raphim because Raphim was Heren's half-brother. Meanwhile, Alexia allowed her group to rest for a moment. She then separated from them and ran into Chiron, who had come to find her. He gave her the map and showed her a path that the demons wouldn't be guarding, allowing them to move forward. Heren, continuing his training, still saw no results. But now, he suddenly set aside his anger and began focusing on observing. He noticed a weak point, blocked an attack, and stabbed into that spot, then charged forward and pushed his sword through the area he had just hit. Zeus praised Heren for his progress. However, Hermes arrived to report that Hera, along with some gods, was heading to the underworld. Hades was not following Hera, as he was neutral. At this point, Zeus realized that the Moirai, the Fates, wanted to meet Heren, so he took him to them. Heren could enter alone, and when he did, the Fates called him to come closer. They told him they knew his fate and future, but weren't allowed to reveal it, so he would have to make his own decisions. They then showed him his thread of fate. He saw his past up until the present. Everything he had gone through was on this thread. But now, the thread split into two paths. He could choose either path. He saw that if Alexia's group continued down the unguarded path, they would die. The two options were either to stay and continue training to awaken his powers, or to risk everything to save Alexia's group. He chose the second option and ran off. Zeus heard this and tried to stop Heren, saying he wasn't ready, but Heren ignored him and kept running. Zeus then descended to meet Raphim. He told him that only half of what had happened to him was his fault. It was true that Zeus had made a mistake by underestimating his uncle's greed and leaving him in the palace. But it was Zeus who had saved him by having the bear mother raise him, not Hera. Hera had abandoned him, while Zeus had helped. Even when Raphim was injured in the eye, it was Zeus who transformed into a bear to save him. Hera, on the other hand, had lured him to his biological mother's place and unknowingly caused him to kill her. Whether Raphim believed it or not, it was up to him. Hera would try to manipulate him, but Zeus wouldn't. Zeus gave him a coin, which would help him get his revenge. Zeus then turned to leave. Meanwhile, Chiron had led Alexia's group to the field of the dead, where gods and titans had once fought. Chiron warned them not to run, as it would provoke the monsters, and also not to look back. Alexia let Chiron go because his people needed him and his wisdom. As they passed through the mist of the field of the dead, Kofi stayed close to Evie. The two encountered a group of demons, but Kofi recognized they were illusions and told Evie to ignore them and keep moving. One person, however, was deceived by the illusion and turned back, only to die. Another girl thought a spider was attacking her, struggled, and turned back, only to be claimed by the field. The rest of the group, however, remained determined and ignored the illusions. Alexia then encounters her mother, who had died long ago. She tries to overcome the pain but is confronted by her father, who blames her for her mother's death. Heartbroken, she manages to push past him and runs away. The rest of the group successfully navigates through the deadly fields and arrives at the entrance, only to be blocked by a demon. However, Heron shoots through its head to save them, as he had come to repay the favor. Meanwhile, Rapham reaches the mountain resembling the one on the coin. There, he finds his uncle, who has withdrawn to a quiet life raising chickens and growing vegetables. His uncle, anticipating his arrival, is mentally prepared for vengeance. Rapham proceeds to cut off a few fingers of the old man in retaliation for his foster mother's death. Then, he takes one leg to avenge his foster mother's sister's family, followed by an eye. It escalates into a brutal, savage torture until his uncle dies. Meanwhile, Heron's group follows the map and arrives at a deeper location. The body of the Titan, which should have been ahead, is nowhere to be found. The only thing waiting for them is a group of demons. Rapham comes down to meet Heron, and the two recognize each other as brothers. Rapham offers Heron a chance to join him and overthrow the gods, the ones who caused pain to both of them and their mothers. However, Heron refuses, disapproving of such barbaric slaughter. He chooses not to follow his brother. Heron shoots Rapham's sword away, and together with the group, they flee. Rapham orders his people to chase them, but many sacrifice themselves to help Heron's group escape. The four finally reach a griffin, and Evie, unable to find a seat, is temporarily picked up by the griffin. Hera soon arrives and reproaches Rapham for going against her plan. Heron leads the group back to Mount Olympus. Hera, noticing Hermes trailing them, sends Ares to attack. She also steals Hermes' invisibility bracelet, forcing Apollo to step in and fight Ares to allow Hermes to escape. Apollo attempts to flee, but is struck by Ares' hammer and knocked off his chariot. Ares then lands a blow on Apollo, throwing him into the sea. Meanwhile, Rapham flies across the ocean and finds a crack in the earth. He dives down and locates the Pandora's box, which contains the souls of the Titans. As soon as he retrieves the box, a guardian warrior created by the blacksmith god awakens. Rapham throws his spear, but the warrior knocks him aside. Nevertheless, he still has a sword capable of cutting through anything, even Zeus' creations. He strikes the warrior's leg, charges, stabs its eye, and grabs the box, making his escape. Hera appears to seize the box and releases the souls of the Titans. Zeus hears of Hera's madness from Hermes and is suddenly stabbed in the neck by Hermes. However, the real Hermes arrives shortly after, revealing that it was actually Hera who had taken Hermes' form to stab Zeus. She leaves, and Zeus is gravely wounded, falling unconscious. The threat from the Titans draws ever closer, but Zeus, weakened by his injury, cannot fend them off. Meanwhile, Hera blocks the Titans' path, commanding them to listen to her. Any Titan who opposes her will have their soul trapped in the box. The leader of the Titans halts his comrades and listens to Hera. She demands that they kill Zeus, and the seas will once again belong to them. Poseidon, witnessing this, quietly leaves. Zeus uses his thunder to stop the bleeding, and at that moment, Poseidon arrives, bringing Apollo with him. Zeus immediately understands that Poseidon's appearance means Hera must have promised the Titans control over the seas. Now, they need to find Pandora's box, and Zeus has a plan. Hera is currently focused on him, so he will act as bait to distract her. Whoever is stealthy enough should retrieve the box. Hermes plans to go, but Heron believes that Hera will be most wary of Hermes. Therefore, Heron volunteers to find the box himself, reasoning that Hera won't expect this. Hermes is hesitant, unwilling to entrust the world's fate to a mortal. However, Zeus believes in Heron because he is his son. The warrior robots of the god of the blacksmith then also set off to prepare for the defense of Mount Olympus. The soldiers had already begun to prepare their armor and weapons, and Alexia along with others were doing the same. Apollo had come to find Heron and gave him a divine bow and arrow set. He, too, was a bastard child like Heron, so he had no disdain toward him. At that moment, the giants appeared, coming here with the gods who opposed Zeus. Evie and Kofi confessed that both had made a great mistake in the past, specifically regarding the demons Alexia had been hunting. Both had sold the bodies of the giants to them. Heron believed that now was the chance for them to atone for their sins. Zeus's army opened fire by shooting cannonballs down below. Hermes dove down, creating a vortex that swept through the demon army below, and Zeus's soldiers immediately followed to engage in battle. However, they were run over by a Titan, while the rest were defeated by Ares and Hera's forces. Zeus then summoned a thunderbolt and signaled for Heron to begin his mission. Heron's group hid inside cannonballs, which were fired down without anyone noticing. The group landed safely, and Heron shot a golden arrow into the air to signal Zeus to narrow the firing range. The Titans were getting closer and began to break through the Olympus Dam. A flying Titan was circling in the air, lifting Zeus's soldiers. When the dam broke, Poseidon used the water to wash away the Titans. Zeus then dove into the water and used his electric powers to push the Titans and demons sinking in the water back. But as soon as the two brothers exchanged a glance, they were immediately attacked. Heron's group had infiltrated the demon camp and began searching. However, they couldn't find the location of the box. Suddenly, Heron heard something and suspected that he had found the box's location. He then rode a griffin into the sky and spotted Hera's crows watching the box. Hera, at that moment, was only focused on Zeus. He warned her that the Titans would betray her, but she didn't care. She threw a pile of stones at Zeus, which he immediately responded to with a thunderbolt. As a result, the crows dropped, allowing Heron to easily chase after the box. However, Rapham and several Titans noticed Heron and the box and immediately changed their target. The leader of the Titans seized the opportunity to bite Hera. He intended to tear her apart, forcing Zeus to come to her rescue. But as Zeus saved his wife, the Titan immediately grabbed him. Heron was also captured by Rapham. After capturing Zeus, the giant intended to crush Hera. At that moment, Zeus signaled Hera, and with that signal, he unleashed a devastating attack on the Titan. However, Zeus was also injured from the attack. Hera, reaching out to grab the remaining piece of Zeus, was struck by a spear thrown by Rapham, severing her arm. She then fled with the crows, while Rapham now had what he wanted, the bracelet of Hermes to control the box. He confidently declared himself the ruler. Ares was defeated, and Hermes rushed to help, but was also captured by the Titan. Apollo was sucked into the air by the flying Titan, and Poseidon could no longer struggle. However, Kofi rushed to seize Rapham and threw the box toward Heron. Kofi was thrown immediately afterward, and Heron caught him. Alexia climbed onto Rapham's mount and took it down, causing Rapham to fall to the ground. But he threw his spear at Alexia. She blocked it with her shield, but the force of the throw was so strong that it sent her flying. Heron rushed in, repeatedly punching Rapham's face to avenge Zeus. However, he was soon captured by Rapham and thrown aside. The Titan locked Heron by the neck and retrieved the spear. Heron struggled to hold the spear but eventually decided to release it, allowing the spear to stab into his body. But he pushed the spear through himself, impaling Rapham as well. Rapham struggled to pull the spear out, but after a while, he managed to do so. However, Heron held on to him and began calling down thunder, striking Rapham with lightning. He was completely defeated, but the Titan who had previously been sacrificed by Zeus was still alive. He swung his arm to attack Heron, but Heron dragged Rapham's body to the box and successfully sealed the Titans once again. Not long after, Heron woke up to find that his brothers had come to visit him. They told him that Zeus was very proud of him, and they were as well. Heren then went outside to check and saw that the gods were rebuilding Olympus. Alexia and her group were safe, and at that moment, Raphim woke up in a dark place. He reached out to retrieve the spear, but a god appeared and told him that he had used his weapon very well. The god introduced himself as Hades and explained that this was the underworld, where he was waiting for Raphim. It was far worse than anything he could imagine, but Hades could save him from this fate if Raphim helped him in return. Specifically, Hades wanted Raphim to pledge allegiance to him. This marked the beginning of Part 2. Hades, tired of the horrors in the underworld, decided that he would join forces with his wife, Persephone, to take Olympus and change the order among the gods. He released 3 shadows to scout Olympus. The story then takes us back in time to the battle between Hera and the Titans against Zeus. The 3 shadows of Hades infiltrated from the side of the battle. As Hermes created a vortex, the shadows hid in the dust and smoke to advance. They avoided being run over by the Titan and headed straight toward the place where the blacksmith god's robots were firing cannons from a distance. The shadows conjured a crow to distract the robots and then defeated them. 2 of the shadows stayed behind, while 1 entered deeper into the area. Meanwhile, Zeus began summoning thunder and signaled Heren to act. Heren reached the cannons and saw that Alexia's group was there as well. Although he didn't want them to be involved, they made their own decisions. Alexia admitted that she had seen his potential, just like the students that the centaur Chiron had trained. Zeus then took out a ring and asked Athena and his sister Hestia to retrieve a divine stone and deliver it to the goddess Gaia. Hera must never get her hands on it. While it was risky to carry the stone, Zeus trusted only Athena and Hestia. At the same time, the shadow who had advanced earlier sneaked into a secret temple. Unfortunately, he triggered a trap and was attacked by a series of stone statues. He used his ability to remain hidden to avoid the statues' attacks and made it into a safe area. However, he couldn't open the door to the stone. Hestia, holding the ring, arrived to open the door and entered. The shadow attempted to assassinate her, but he saw Athena approaching and withdrew. Hestia, sensing someone behind her, had the shadow evade her sight. She then read the command allowed to open the door and touched the divine stone. As soon as she made contact, the stone reacted violently, forcing her to wrap it up and carry it away. She exited the temple and met up with Athena. The 2 of them began their journey as they saw the flying titan starting to suck up people from below. The 3 shadows immediately gave chase, and when the opportunity arose, they began attacking. However, Athena stepped forward, raising her shield to protect Hestia. Hestia fired flames at the shadows, but they were quick and agile, dodging the flames. Above them, the flying titan was drawing closer, and Athena quickly searched for a way to guide Hestia safely. The titan was sucking people up very closely, and with the shadows behind them, their escape was becoming more difficult. But both Athena and Hestia kept running, forcing the shadows to continue chasing them. Eventually, they escaped, but now they had to find a way to cross the battlefield without being detected. Athena had a plan and led Hestia along, while the 3 shadows sought out 3 demons that consumed corpses. They commanded the demons to hunt Hestia down. Poseidon's waves rose higher, and Athena had to kill demons to clear their path. However, the 3 demons, skilled in eating corpses, arrived quickly and attacked Hestia. She responded by unleashing fire, but the demons were not mindless. They knew how to dodge. They coordinated and managed to steal the divine stone away from her. Hestia clung to the divine stone, but the 3 shadows were not in a hurry to act. As Hestia struggled to keep the stone, she suddenly saw Zeus unleashing his power to defeat the Titan. The strength from the divine stone surged into Hestia, causing her to erupt in flames, burning 2 of the corpse-eating demons. She then used the flames to fly and quickly realized she was being followed. She flew lower, weaving through obstacles and finding a way to shake off the owl. When it blindly followed her, she struck back, catching it off guard. One of the shadows was suddenly blinded after this, and Hades appeared to ask what he had seen. The shadow pointed out Hestia's location, and for the moment, he was spared. At this time, Athena was with Hermes, heading to rescue Heren, who was trapped under the Titan's hand. As Hermes carried Heren back to Olympus, Heren had a strange dream. In the dream, a voice told him that he needed to retrieve the sword that Zeus had forged for him. The goal was to save Rapham. He suddenly fell off Hermes's back before losing consciousness. Meanwhile, Hestia had reached Gaia's temple and met with the goddess. Gaia recognized the divine stone and realized that Zeus must have perished. She decided to fulfill Zeus's wish and guide his son. Hades, meanwhile, had returned to the underworld, furious that his plan had failed. The divine stone was now likely in Gaia's possession, and no one could take it unless she allowed it. Persephone believed that they would find a way to retrieve the stone and take back the injustices they had suffered. Suddenly, Persephone looked at a flower vase and remembered that they could use Rapham. So, Hades went to Rapham's body and placed 2 coins on his eyes, sending him to the ferryman of the dead. In the days that followed, Heren kept dreaming of the battle. He was so preoccupied with his thoughts that he couldn't sleep, so he woke up and went to see how everyone was doing. Alexia noticed and followed him. Suddenly, Heren rode his flying horse back to the place where he had killed Rapham. Memories flooded back, and he struck the ground with a lightning bolt. Alexia was surprised and understood what was going through his mind. She believed that what Heren had done was right, and that Rapham had to pay for his actions. However, Heren thought that while Rapham was wrong, he was also right in one thing. The gods, like humans, had their flaws, and they did not have to follow them blindly. At that moment, Rapham arrived in the underworld and met with Hades. Hades offered Rapham the same deal as before. He could either join him or face judgment. Rapham chose the second option and was shackled and taken to court. He was sentenced guilty for killing countless people, and when he met his mother and brother, he once again saw the scene from his past. But instead of feeling sympathy, he had become what he had once hated the most. Moreover, he had followed Hera's commands and caused another bloody battle at Olympus. Yet, he had once known love and goodness, so if he repented, the court would give him a chance to make amends. But he refused, and as a result, the 3 judges condemned him to Tartarus in the underworld. However, Hades gave Rapham a chance to speak. He claimed that the 3 judges were all people who had received wealth from Zeus, and he knew very well the despicable acts they had committed before becoming the judges of the underworld. He then killed 2 of the shadows, which only angered the judges, and they summoned a demon to suppress him. Hades later visited his wife, Persephone, and this was the last day they would spend together. Persephone knew that winter was approaching, and she had to return to Olympus. She created a tree for Hades to stay by during the lonely times ahead. She also heard about Rapham's situation and advised Hades to try to persuade him gently and show him care, like a father would. Not long after, the chariot arrived to take Persephone back to Olympus. Hades' daughter refused to accept that her mother had to leave, but the 2 of them promised their daughter that this would be the last time her mother would have to leave. Persephone then boarded the chariot, and when Hades saw their 2 children still lingering with their mother, he swore to change the laws. Hades then descended into Tartarus to find Rapham. He refused to accept Hades' help, but Hades believed he needed him. After all, it was Hades who had helped him in the past. It was Hades who had suggested he eat the Titan's flesh to gain strength, and it was Hades who had given him the right to wield his own weapon in battle. The gods who had wronged Rapham had also wronged Hades, so he was confident that he was different from the other gods. Years ago, when the primal titans fell, their blood created smaller titans. However, they did not know that, aside from these titans, there was still another titan hiding beneath the sea, slowly growing in strength each day. When the time came, this titan would rise and destroy the world, forcing the gods to stop him. After a long battle, the 2 sides were nearly at a stalemate, but the gods eventually managed to seal him. However, no one was allowed to speak the name of the giant to prevent him from awakening. The power of this sealed giant was forged into a stone by the goddess, and Zeus believed no one was clever enough to hold the stone, so he hid it away and divided the world into 3 realms, for the gods, humans, and demons. Initially, Hades had thought dividing the gods to rule these realms was a good idea, but he gradually realized that it was unfair, as Zeus and Hera always found ways to remain in paradise. Hades wanted Raphim's help to retrieve the stone hidden in the world by Gaia, but Raphim would rather stay in the underworld than be a pawn for the gods like him. Back with Heron, he sought the blacksmith god to learn how to find the sword that Zeus had forged for him. The blacksmith gave Heron a compass, explaining that if he could find the metal Zeus used to forge the sword and place some of it in the compass, it would guide him. Heron then went outside and saw many demigods coming to pay their respects and confirm Zeus' death. Heron was puzzled, as gods were supposed to be immortal. Apollo explained that gods don't die like mortals. When a god receives a mortal wound, they are sent to the underworld for judgment. A god only truly dies when they are completely forgotten by the world. Therefore, Apollo decided to establish many temples to Zeus to ensure that no one would forget him. Apollo then noticed that all the gods had gathered, but strangely, Hades was nowhere to be seen. Hades, meanwhile, found Raphim and took him on a walk. He led Raphim to a river, whose water could help one forget their worries, and he believed Raphim would find peace through this water. Raphim then heard Zeus recount his story. When Zeus was first assigned to the underworld, he thought it was perfectly normal, but over time, he began to feel suffocated by it. Who could live in a place where the constant cries of the dead echoed in their ears? Frustrated, he ascended to the surface to seek justice from Zeus. However, he soon realized that he couldn't stay away from the underworld for long, until he met Persephone. She was the reason he chose to endure the pain and remain in the mortal world. But he knew that her mother would never accept him, for a goddess who brought light to the crops would never be compatible with someone who lived in the dark underworld like him. Hades longed to get closer to Persephone and befriend her, and the opportunity came when he discovered that her horse was about to die. He took a special potion and brought it to Persephone. This potion could heal a creature back to health. He helped her save the horse, and she came to know of Hades' existence. She wondered why he didn't show himself to her. Hades, though wanting to, knew that if he did, he would only bring her suffering. So, he decided never to meet her in person. Though he resolved this, his emotions were not so easy to discard. Hades also looked into Raphim's story and discovered that once, when Raphim had been injured, he had encountered a nun who bandaged his wounds and then left. Hades also looked into Raphim's story and learned that once, when Raphim was injured, he encountered a nun who helped bandage his wounds and then left. Since then, he repeatedly went to see her, but their relationship was, of course, forbidden, and they could only meet in secret. Nevertheless, Raphim continued to help the girl and sought ways to meet her, just as Hades could only secretly meet Persephone. Although he wanted to appear and talk to her, he could never reveal his face. Persephone constantly complained about how her mother pressured her to marry noble men like Ares, but the one she truly liked was someone as kind and thoughtful as Hades. Both he and Raphim loved someone deeply, but neither had the courage to cross the boundaries, which resulted in the ones they loved having to suffer. One day, when Ares came to ask Persephone about the person who was secretly meeting with her, she refused to reveal anything, which angered Ares, and he threatened to cause trouble. Hades had to intervene to stop him. Naturally, Ares was no match for Hades, so he left in defeat. Afterward, Persephone and Hades decided to go to the underworld to live together. Hades prevented Persephone from eating any food from the underworld to avoid her becoming bound to it. But soon after, Demeter, Persephone's mother, came to reclaim her daughter. Persephone decided to eat 6 pomegranate seeds from the underworld and accept being bound to it. Demeter was furious and spread the word that Hades had abducted Persephone, causing the fields on earth to wither. Zeus decided that Persephone would spend 6 months with Hades and the other 6 months with Demeter, giving rise to the phenomenon of fields being covered in snow for half the year. Hades grew tired of seeing his wife and children suffer due to their separation every spring, so he wished to change everything. He then showed Raphim the woman he loved, who was stuck on the other side of a river because she couldn't afford to pay the ferryman. That day, she had given up her life as a nun to run away with Raphim and start a new life. She had advised him to abandon his desire for revenge, but 2 days later, he found the man who killed his mother, and blinded by hatred, he broke his promise to the girl. We all know what happened next. He became a demon, and the girl ended up in the underworld. Raphim wanted to know what had happened to the girl, but Hades believed that even if he knew, it wouldn't change what had already happened. However, he believed Raphim could help him change the existing order so that no one would suffer the way they had. Raphim agreed to help him, but only if Hades allowed the woman he loved to come to the underworld and drink from the river to forget her memories of him. Meanwhile, Heron had been having recurring dreams about meeting the Fates. Though he encountered them in his dreams, they had also come to find him in the real world. They told him that during the previous battle, someone had secretly cut the thread of his fate. Since the thread was cut by someone other than them, the Fates could no longer foresee the path of his fate. All they knew was that, after some time, Heron would die. However, he could use the remaining time to create blessings instead of trying to avoid it. At the same time, Raphim was with Hades, who handed him a spear and a vial of potion that would allow him to return to his previous human form. This was just an appearance. His demon strength would remain inside him. Hades needed him to return to human form so he could take him out of the underworld without drawing attention. Hades then took him to the surface and led him to an island where there were 3 creatures for Raphim to choose from as his steed. Back with Heron, he was quite upset that his life thread had been cut. The Fates noticed that Hermes had been eavesdropping and instructed him to confront him. Hermes was surprised that he had been caught, but the real problem now was that the gods were dividing into factions again. Most of the gods were rallying behind Poseidon and demanding that he become the new king of Olympus. The only thing preventing a war from breaking out was Zeus' death. Ares seemed to be gathering followers, and the concern over Hades still lingered. At this point, Heron was quite disheartened but did not share his feelings with Alexia's group. He decided he would pray for Zeus one last time before leaving. Alexia's group decided to follow him. When they arrived at the funeral, everyone avoided Heron and his group. Athena approached Heron and led him to a Colosseum where a contest was being held to win Zeus' ring, an item that held a secret that could bring one closer to the throne. Heron had no intention of participating but wished Athena the best in winning it. However, Ares came over and began mocking Heron, blaming him and his mother for causing trouble when he and Raphim were born. Even though Heron was Zeus' son, half of him was still human, and the gods would always look down on him no matter what he did. Ares proudly claimed that he was doing Heron a favor by being honest with him, stating that if it weren't for Heron's mother, Zeus wouldn't have died, and disaster wouldn't have occurred. But Heron argued that Zeus' death was caused by Hera and the fools who followed her. Angered, Ares punched Heron, but Hades intervened, and that was when Heron decided to enter the contest to defeat Ares. Hades told Ares to respect the rules and not use weapons there. Of course, Ares scoffed at Hades, as he resented him for taking Persephone from him. Hades then encountered his wife again, but Demeter refused to let him be with her and took Persephone away. In the first round of the competition, which was a javelin throw, Heron was outmatched by Ares' superior physical strength. In the next round, a discus throw, Ares still surpassed him. However, when it came to the archery competition, Heron's skill allowed him to win. Ares believed that if Heron was trying to earn his respect, he should step into the ring for a one-on-one fight. Heron agreed, despite Alexia's attempts to stop him. Athena also tried to dissuade Ares, but both girls received nothing but indifference from the stubborn men. Ares declared that he would not go easy on Heron, and given his own size compared to Heron's, it seemed he was not joking. Heron stepped into the ring, but Ares quickly landed a punch that left him dazed. Ares demanded Heron surrender, but Heron got up and continued to fight. Ares claimed that all the gods were cheering for him because they wanted to see a half-human like Heron submit. However, Heron used the power of thunder to increase his speed and relentlessly punched Ares. Heron landed a hit on Ares' face, and for a moment, it seemed the situation had turned. But Ares retaliated even harder and urged Heron to give up. Heron continued to press on, only to take a blow to his left eye. But remembering Zeus' words, he got back up and stood his ground. At that moment, Hera returned and intervened, stopping the fight before anyone else could die. She acknowledged that everyone was angry with her, but she wanted to give her life in exchange for Zeus, if possible. She admitted her mistakes and was trying to fix everything she had caused. She promised she wouldn't set foot there again, but wished to express her respects to Zeus before leaving. Ares spoke up in defense of his mother, as she was his mother, but the majority opposed Hera and drove her and Ares away. Suddenly, Gaia appeared. Heron recognized Gaia as the one who had whispered many things to him in his dreams. Gaia spoke and allowed Hera to express her respects before accepting her punishment of being exiled from Olympus. Gaia declared that for the next 3 days, they would honor Zeus by refraining from fighting. After those 3 days, she would hold a contest to find the heir to Zeus' throne and would give the divine stone to the winner. Gaia then left, and the ceremony to honor Zeus began. Hermes stepped forward to summon Zeus' spirit. Zeus had the chance to reunite with his children and siblings, offering final words of guidance to each of them, especially Heron. He wished to give him the ring as proof that Heron was his son. The ring was not a symbol of inheritance, but a sign of Heron's identity. Heron received it from Poseidon. Finally, Zeus admitted that no god was perfect, and everyone had their flaws. He didn't want anyone to suffer from the same mistakes he had made. He urged them all to live by their own ideals. Afterward, Hermes collected Zeus' soul and took him to the underworld. It was only then that Heron confided in Alexia's group about his true feelings. He explained that he needed to find the sword that Zeus had forged and use it to save Rapham. He didn't understand why, out of all the beings, Gaia wanted him to save Rapham. Meanwhile, Zeus, now with Hermes, was waiting for the ferryman. Hermes intended to give the ferryman a pouch of coins, but Zeus stopped him, saying that he wanted to meet someone. The ferryman then took Zeus to where he needed to go, and there, Zeus reunited with Heron's mother. The two ran to each other and embraced for a brief moment before Heron's mother slapped Zeus because of what had happened with Rapham. Zeus was only able to stay with her for a short time before someone came looking for him. Knowing that it would be hard to meet again, he quietly left. Heron, meanwhile, was searching for the ore that Zeus had used to forge the sword so he could put it into a compass. He returned to his hometown to find where Zeus had buried his mother. The currency in this area had once been made from that same metal, and Heron had given his mother a few coins before the events at the start of the story unfolded. However, neither he nor Alexia knew where Zeus had buried his mother. Heron and Alexia returned to Heron's old house, where he discovered a secret chamber beneath the fire pit, and the key to it was Zeus' ring. He decided to go down alone. Meanwhile, Zeus had been brought to the underworld's court. He was regarded as a valiant warrior who had led many battles to victory, but his womanizing was a stain on his life that he could not justify. However, Hades still had something to say. He pointed out that when the realms were divided among the 3 brothers, Zeus was not fair. When it came time to draw lots for the stones representing the realms, Hera had intervened and helped Zeus draw the divine stone. Although Zeus knew this, he accepted the arrangement to rule over Olympus. Hera didn't deny it but admitted that it was her fault. However, she believed she had done the right thing. Despite Zeus wanting a fair division, he had defeated the king of the Titans, and everyone knew that Zeus deserved to be king of Olympus. Hera did not accept that Zeus had become king simply by chance. Poseidon also agreed with Hera's plan and did not deny it. Meanwhile, Heron had reached the end of the tunnel, but found only a message left by Zeus. It read that Heron would be the demigod who would bring true peace to the skies and the earth. He would be the one to defeat the demons, and time would reveal the answers to the questions he had. However, time was something he no longer had much of. At that moment, Evie discovered a trail of blood and went to investigate. Heron then returned to the surface and told Alexia to follow him to the mountain where he had mined the ore years ago. Suddenly, the group saw Evie going somewhere and followed him, discovering several bodies nearby. Meanwhile, Hades advised Hera to stop defending Zeus, as Zeus had never loved her. Before coming to the underworld, Zeus had visited Heron's mother. Hades believed that the reason Zeus never brought Rapham back to Heron's mother was because Zeus still harbored resentment for Rapham being the son of the king he despised, and that's why he let Rapham suffer. Zeus did not deny this, admitting that he saved Rapham, but could not bring him back to his mother. Although Zeus had regrets, the truth was that the scale of his wrongdoings was heavier, and he would have to suffer punishment in the depths of Tartarus. Meanwhile, Heron encountered Hermes, who told him that the group had been attacked by ghouls. Zeus' death had caused the demons to stir, no longer following the old order. Hermes also reminded Evie and Kofi that one of their allies had escaped the island, but they had left her behind. Evie knew that he had to deal with his personal matters, so he parted ways with the group. However, Kofi chose to stay with Heron, which shocked Evie. He tried to convince Kofi to leave, but it was in vain, so he decided to go on alone. Not long after, Hades guided Rapham somewhere, but Rapham had his own business to attend to, so he broke away from Hades. Rapham later sought out a giant who was known for devouring humans. This giant guarded the passage through the mountains, allowing only those who could answer his riddle to pass. However, Rapham was there not to answer the riddle, but to exact revenge, for this giant was the one who had killed the priestess he loved. Years ago, while Rapham was a fugitive for his crimes, the priestess had wandered into the giant's territory and encountered him as he was about to kill a man. The priestess intervened, offering to answer the riddle in the man's place. The giant agreed and asked her, "What is better than the gods, worse than hell, something the poor have, but the rich do not need?" Her answer was, "Nothing. Nothing is better than the gods, nothing is worse than hell, the poor have nothing, and the rich need nothing." While her answer was correct, the giant still killed the man and then chased after her to devour her. Now, Rapham blamed himself for allowing her to cross paths with the giant. When he confronted the giant, Rapham demanded to know why the giant had broken his word and eaten the priestess. The giant replied that it was simply his nature and duty to do so. Rapham, in turn, declared that killing the giant was his own duty. Rapham transformed into his demon form and attacked. However, the giant quickly overpowered him, throwing him aside. Forced to act strategically, Rapham hurled his spear into the giant's leg, then charged and stabbed the spear into the giant's ear. He finished the fight by driving his spear directly into the giant's chest, pushing him off a cliff. Afterward, Rapham discovered the priestess's scarf still lying there. He vowed to end her suffering soon and honor her memory. Meanwhile, Heron had climbed to the rose bush location, where a small amount of ore was believed to remain from an earlier excavation. However, upon arrival, he found that all the remaining ore had vanished. They soon realized that the villagers were on the verge of being attacked by corpse-eating demons. Alexia wanted to help the villagers, but Heron, still harboring resentment for how they had treated him and his mother, initially refused. Alexia, believing in Heron's sense of humanity, decided to go with Kofi instead. Unable to let them go alone, Heron reluctantly joined them. The trio arrived at a mine and encountered a little girl staggering out, covered in injuries. She managed to tell them about the impending attack on the villagers before succumbing to her wounds. The group ventured into the mine, discovering the corpse-eating demons lurking within. In the darkness, the demons had the advantage, moving quickly and inflicting wounds on the trio. In desperation, Heron unleashed a bolt of lightning to strike the creatures. Alexia threw a sword to stop one demon from ambushing Heron, and the last remaining demon was spared by Heron who demanded it warn its kin not to attack again. Afterward, Heron met the villagers who had once mistreated him and his mother. Some expressed regret for their actions. When he asked about his mother's burial site, they couldn't provide a definite answer, but pointed him to a location where Zeus might have buried her. With this clue, Heron set out for the area. Meanwhile, Rapham, severely injured, fell from his mount and reverted to his human form. Hades had sent a magical owl to locate him. At the same time, Demeter cut down the tree that Persephone had grown for Hades. Demeter, knowing Hades' true goals, decided to ally with him rather than expose his plans, as she believed it would spare her daughter's heartache. Her condition for helping him was to secure a position of power on Olympus once Hades became king. Elsewhere, Heron and his group stumbled upon an unconscious man in the forest and rescued him. Unbeknownst to them, it was Rapham. Heron used his lightning to revive him. Startled upon seeing Heron, Rapham panicked and tried to summon his spear, but it was stuck in a tree, and his weakened state rendered him unable to retrieve it. Rapham fainted again, and the group left him to rest while they proceeded to the sacred cemetery. Heron believed he had found his mother's grave. Rapham, having regained consciousness, followed them into the cemetery. He planned to assassinate Heron, but hesitated when he overheard Heron expressing a desire to help Rapham redeem himself. When Heron discovered Rapham, the latter gave a false name to conceal his identity. Heron recognized that Rapham had encountered the man-eating giant and deduced that Rapham was searching for the grave of a priestess he loved. Heron's group decided to help him. Kofi realized that Rapham was someone who had endured war, love, and the suffering caused by the gods. Later that day, Heron found the priestess's grave and left Rapham to grieve in private. After swearing before the grave of the girl, Rapham gave Heron some advice. Afterward, Heron realized that the flower Zeus had engraved on his mother's grave was made from the same ore. He pried out a small amount and placed it into the compass. However, Rapham had already left, taking back his spear. He found a few people trying to catch his steed, and the tragic end for those who dared to do so was unavoidable. Meanwhile, Hades had noticed Rapham and continued to follow him in secret. At this point, Alexia asked Heron why he no longer felt like himself when using his power. Heron admitted to her that it felt strange, almost like how Rapham longed for power and consumed the flesh of the giant. Shortly after, a messenger from the ancient gods came to deliver a clue about Gaia's contest. Heron accepted the message, and Hades too received a message. Hades informed Rapham that while the contestants were participating in Gaia's contest, he had to sneak into Gaia's mystical world using the Titan's blood in his veins. If he failed, their plan to reshape the world would fail. Rapham, determined to make the plan succeed, vowed to do whatever was necessary. Meanwhile, Demeter had a plan to weaken the other gods. She spread a parasite that, when inhaled, would turn the affected into trees that would explode. Her goal was to reduce the number of people who worshipped the other gods and strengthen Hades' army of the dead. At the same time, Heron and his group were sailing across the sea to search for the sword. For some reason, the compass led them to an Amazon ship, similar to Alexia's. A robot guardian suddenly emerged from the water and attacked the ship, sinking it. Heron used lightning to repel the robot, but it proved to be incredibly resilient. It endured the attacks but soon retaliated, capturing Heron's steed and throwing Kofi into the sea. Only Alexia remained on board. She leapt straight into the robot's eyes after spotting some light within. She jumped inside and found the sword, but as the battle raged outside, the robot shook and the sword fell into the depths of the water. Below, a hydra emerged, and Alexia had no choice but to face it. Kofi then flew his steed back to the surface and, along with Heron, fought the robot, while Alexia continued her battle with the hydra. The robot managed to capture Heron, and the hydra caught Kofi, forcing Alexia to use the sword to deal with it. Just as Heron was about to be crushed, Kofi and Alexia managed to destroy the robot from the inside, allowing all three of them to escape. An Amazon ship arrived to rescue them shortly after. Heron now possessed the sword. On the ship, Alexia reunited with her aunt, who informed her of the recent chaos in the world, from the robot attacks by the Godsmith to the corpse-eating creatures attacking the living, and even the giant who had been killed by a spear. Someone had mentioned that the one who killed the giant was a rider on a chimera. Heron then realized that the person he had encountered at his mother's grave was Rapham. It seemed that Hades had helped Rapham escape from the underworld, as Zeus had once revealed that it was Hades who had led Rapham to devour the giant's flesh. Rapham's fall into darkness due to his hunger for power was his own doing, and Heron did not want to become like him. It also appeared that Hades was after the divine stone, and their task now was to prevent Rapham from obtaining it. Alexia then shared her own background. She explained how her mother had died early, and her father, harboring resentment, had abandoned her. She had become a warrior to make him regret his decision. Meanwhile, Heron's siblings Hermes and Athena discovered that Hades was scheming something. Hermes rushed to investigate, but he was caught in Demeter's poisonous gas, forcing him to retreat. Athena went to inquire with Persephone about Hades' intentions, but Persephone remained silent. She told Athena to do whatever she planned, but warned that if Athena acted on her intentions, Persephone would act in kind. Rapham then reached the gate that led to the world where Gaia had hidden the divine stone. He sneaked in and sent 3 shadows to distract the guards, while he approached and poured the river Styx water into their drinking water. This water would cause them to fall into a trance, nearly forgetting reality. After the shadows escaped, when the guards returned, the sun was made to shine intensely, forcing them to drink. After just 1 sip, they lost consciousness completely, though they still stood firm with headaches. Rapham then approached them himself, pretending to be a nobody. He spoke of Zeus, past how Kronos, the Titan god, had feared a prophecy that one of his children would overthrow him, so he devoured all his offspring. However, Gaia and Zeus' mother worked together to switch the children, allowing Zeus to survive. Gaia took Zeus into this separate world to raise him and teach him how to fight so that one day he could defeat Kronos. This gate could only be passed by Gaia and her Titan children. Rapham then entered and told the guards that if anyone asked, they should say that nobody had entered. He tried to open the door, but it didn't budge, causing the guards to become suspicious. However, he eventually managed to open it and continued forward. Meanwhile, Apollo found Hermes on the beach. Both of them were affected by the poisonous gas, making it difficult to use their powers. Apollo suspected that Hera was behind this, as she despised Zeus' illegitimate children like them the most. Demeter had been watching their situation and was also observing Ares leaving. Persephone was now upset about her mother's trees being destroyed, but upon hearing that it was Hades' idea, her pain deepened. Athena had discovered this and learned about Persephone's reaction. As for Rapham, he had entered Gaia's world, and Hades informed him that he would have to face 3 trials. However, a nun suddenly appeared before him, advising him not to speak to Hades. Rapham quickly realized that this was not the woman he loved. Then, Gaia's projection appeared. She knew that Rapham was here, but still offered him a chance. She gave him 3 options: to change and choose to stay with the woman, preventing her from encountering the giant and suffering tortures as if in hell; to change and enter the memories, living a new life with the woman in the underworld; to return to the moment when he was thrown into the sea by his uncle and change nearly everything. However, Rapham rejected all 3 options, believing that even a god could not change the past. He saw it as a test for a new king, a king who must learn to discard the past, something he could not do. Gaia's projection then transformed into a dragon, and Rapham immediately avoided its fiery breath. He charged at the dragon, but it struck him with its tail, sending him flying. After regaining his footing, he dodged another fire blast and thrust his spear into the dragon's neck, passing the first trial. Not long after, Heron's group arrived at the gate and encountered the gatekeepers, who were powerful warriors. Heron used his identity as Zeus' son to ask for entry. The guards demanded proof, so he showed them the ring. They recognized it and allowed him in. He asked if anyone else had entered, and they replied no. However, Kofi noticed footprints on the ground, suggesting that someone had already entered. Back to Raphim, he entered the second trial, where a sphinx appeared and declared that only the brave could pass. It then created a box. If Raphim opened it, he would face his greatest fear. He laughed, claiming that he had lost everything and thus had nothing left to fear. He opened the box, which was completely empty, and was allowed to continue. However, as soon as he entered the maze, the Sphinx attacked him again, accusing him of lying because he still had a fear, the fear of disappointing the ones he loved. Meanwhile, Heron knew that Raphim had entered before him. The guards insisted that he prove himself by opening the door on his own. Raphim had succeeded in doing this, so he was recognized and allowed in. Heron tried to push the door, but soon noticed the position where he could attach the ring, using this method to open the gate. Hades noticed Heron's arrival and warned Raphim to hurry up. Meanwhile, Athena gathered the gods on Heron's side to warn them. She lightly stepped on Demeter's plant to prevent her from eavesdropping. Athena had figured out that Demeter was behind everything, and that she was trying to shift the blame onto Hera. Athena told everyone to follow her lead and trick Demeter into thinking they were going to find Hera to stop it. But in reality, they were heading to Persephone for clues that would lead them to Demeter. As for Heron, as soon as he entered, he saw the dragon's corpse and immediately went to the Sphinx. He admitted to the Sphinx that he had a fear he feared that his death wouldn't be worthy. He then opened the box, and the Sphinx told him that his answer was only part of his fear. His greatest fear was that his death wouldn't atone for the sins he had committed. If he hadn't thrown away the sword forged by Zeus, he would have had a weapon to fight Raphim, save his mother, kill Raphim, and prevent the war between Olympus and the Titans. Furthermore, Zeus would not have died. The Sphinx then allowed him through because he lacked nothing in courage. He only lacked one thing essential to give him a worthy death. Heron entered the maze, but the entrance closed behind him, trapping him. However, his sword was able to cut through walls, and he quickly cleared his path, heading straight for the stone. Gaia appeared, and while she was willing to give him the stone, the rules still had to be followed. She would present him with one final challenge and offered him a piece of advice. Both he and the gods needed to learn forgiveness. Heron believed that Zeus and his mother's deaths were because he couldn't forgive Raphim, but Gaia told him that he needed to forgive himself. Now, the question was who would be chosen, Heron or Raphim? The two of them faced each other again, and Raphim explained that his help to Hades was to save the woman Heron had seen at the graveyard. He was willing to endure the torments of hell, but he had to save her first. Raphim threw his spear at the bird guarding the stone. It flew away, and Heron tried to save it, but the gate of heaven opened, and the bird was struck by Raphim's spear, crashing down after flying out of the cave. Hades' army arrived, and Ares did the same. Athena and her group were also there with hostages to pressure Hades. Hera had to intervene and stop the three factions from preparing to fight. She tried to convince them not to make the same mistakes she had, but Hades rejected the injustice he had suffered for so long. Hera had no choice but to withdraw, and the battle began. The factions charged, and Hades threw his spear at Athena. She dodged, but the spear returned and dragged Persephone with it. Raphim and Heron raced to grab the stone, but the warriors tried to stop Raphim. Hermes dove down to seize the stone, gaining strength from it and running faster. Hades turned to target Hermes, and a wind goddess created a storm that pursued Hermes. He ran to give the stone to Athena, but the storm pushed him away. The stone fell before Ares and Raphim. Raphim dashed to get it, but Ares swung his hammer down. However, Heron saved Raphim's life, only to be bound by Demeter's vines. The stone went back to her. Just then, Poseidon entered the fray, tossing the stone toward Heron. A shadowy figure tried to ambush Heron, but Raphim repaid him for saving his life earlier. Raphim took the stone and created a storm of lightning, scattering anyone who came at them. Ares tried to charge in but was struck by lightning. Now, Heron had enough power to defeat Hera and take revenge for everything that had happened. Rapham tried to provoke Heron into attacking Hera, but Heron remembered Gaia's words and chose to forgive Hera. But forgiving did not mean weakness. He wanted everything to return to its original state and asked Hades to fulfill his promise to Rapham. Hades gave Rapham a vial of potion to meet his beloved. Though it was with great regret, Heron declared that the people of Olympus must return to Olympus. Poseidon returned to the sea, and Hades had to return to the underworld, as this order had kept the world in balance for so long. However, Hades, blinded by the power of the stone, took advantage of the situation and struck Heron with a blow. Gaia was furious and decided to destroy everything. She believed that Zeus was the one who started the mistake by being unfaithful, which then led Hera to escalate that mistake to a greater degree. And now, Hades, by sneakily attacking a noble hero, had crossed the line. Gaia decided to call upon the strongest Titan who was sealed away, leaving it to wreak havoc and destroy everything. She shouted the name of Typhon 3 times, and the stone began to crack, releasing a burst of energy. The destruction that awaited the gods was yet to come, but that will have to wait for the next part of the film, which will be released in the future. For now, farewell.